It's Dubai, Habibi, land of the Burj Khalifa, the 7-star hotel, and the annual tradition of your landlord hitting you with a rent increase that makes you question all your life choices. I'm talking about that WhatsApp message that arrives like a digital gut punch. Dear valued tenant, due to market conditions, your rent is now double. Thanks, bye. Sounds familiar, folks? Because it should. You have been living in Dubai for maybe what? 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, paying all the rents over and over again? Expats have long been fighting this debate over brunch. Keep spending more and more money on rent, or should they finally buy a place to live? Today, we are not just asking the question. We are all set to fragment the flus, the lifestyle here, and the additional fees that can multiply. The emotional roller coaster of maybe this year I'll finally feel settled. And yes, the undeniable flex of casually dropping, yay, this is my apartment finally. So grab your karak chai, maybe a stress ball, and let's be real. This is Real Talk. Let's dive into the numbers game. The data that the market throws at us. In 2024, according to research, average rents in Dubai up 24%. And in some premium areas, we are talking about a 50% spike. You could have bought a luxury watch collection for that kind of increase. And anyway, time is a great teacher. On the bright side, mortgage buyers received a boost with an interest rate drop of 0.5%, a first cut in over 4 years. It's like they're saying, hey, we are not that bad. Let's paint a picture. You're spending, say, 100,000 dirhams a year in rent. That's 8,333 dirhams a month vanishing into thin air. Imagine how many shawarmas and karaks you could have had in that month for that kind of money. And here, you're building someone else's equity? Now that shiny one bedroom in JVC or Dubai Hills, using a mortgage calculator with these figures, you could be looking at a monthly payment of anywhere between 4,000 dirhams to even 6,000 dirhams. You want to put up a picture? Change a light fixture in your rented apartment? You better get ready to spend weeks and weeks following up with your landlord for a no objection certificate. Meanwhile, as an owner, you can finally redecorate that children's playroom without that landlord watching over you with hawk eyes, just like your strict parent. Suddenly, owning a home sounds pretty appealing, right? But here's the catch. Renting gives you the freedom to chase the next shiny neighborhood, the next apartment with upgraded amenities, especially if your salary is doing the Dubai shuffle upwards. It's like a video game. You can always level up your location. See, the numbers are just the appetizer. The main course? That's where things get interesting. Let's pull back the curtain on this Dubai property dream. Buying here is like being a kid in a candy store. Options are aplenty to keep you lost in the maze. Here's the stuff. You may just gloss over those shiny brochures with the infinity pools and the designer interiors. Down payment. For expats, the down payment is 20%. Then you've got the additional fees that add up to 4%, 2%, so on and so forth. And then there's a miscellaneous fee as well. So on that entry-level 1 million dirham apartment, you're looking at dropping 250,000 dirham before you even unpack a single box. Let's not forget the paperwork. From getting your loan approved to needing those NOC approvals and heading with the registration. And then the most overlooked aspect of property ownership, the service charge. It's for maintenance, security, hospitality, and much, much more. It may range from 3 dirhams to even 30 dirhams per square foot. In a 1,000 square foot apartment, that's 30,000 dirhams a year. That's another rent. But here's the psychological jujitsu. If you're planning on sticking around in Dubai for the long haul, 5 years, 10 years, maybe until the 1 dirham karak is actually 20 dirhams, then buying can actually make sense. Not just for the wallet, but for the soul. That feeling of putting down roots, of not having to pack up every 2 years in your life because your landlord decided to renovate for his son's homecoming. If you're here flipping a purchase into profits in the short term, you have to factor in the cost of selling, which again includes the fees, the mortgage, and much, much more. So, there is another process that you need to budget for. But at the end of the day, there's a certain undeniable allure to ownership, the stability, and the simple, glorious freedom of changing that kitchen cabinet in your apartment without asking for permission. That, my friends, is priceless. To help us understand this further, whether it is a buyer's market or a renter's market, we are joined by an esteemed guest on the show, and that is Tahir Majithia, Managing Partner, Prime Capital. So thank you so much for joining us on this show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So this has been a very big question on our minds. I have been talking about how this is going to be a very difficult decision to take.
Right.
Whether you want to keep renting or whether you want to find out that this is the right time to buy a property. You have often said that timing is everything and Dubai is realistic.
Right.
What are the top signals that you look for to identify whether this is the right moment to decide it is a buyer's market or a renter's market?
Now, see, there are 2-3 things. When you're talking about buying a property, there are two timings which you need to consider. One is your personal financial timing, right? Because maybe the markets are amazing to buy right now, but if you don't have the finances, then that's of no use. And this other thing is, when you're buying, when are you buying into the market? You need to understand the cycles of the market, and you need to understand whether you're buying, what's the purpose of buying, whether you're buying for your own use, you're buying to rent a property. One thing which is there that nobody can actually predict the markets. So don't wait for predictions, I would say to people, and make an informed decision. Irrespective of when you're buying into a market, you need to see that when you buy at that time, your purchase has to be correct. Because a lot of people think that, in real estate, people make money when they are selling the property. But the reality is that you make money on the buy. If you bought the correct property at the right price, you've made money, because you know that, for example, if it's not ready, it gets ready, it will get sold for a higher price. Or if it's, bought something which is below market, that means you've already made some appreciation on it. So timing, yes, is important. Along with timing, making decisions based on data and correct information is also very important.
Just like you mentioned, there are certain preconceived notions that
Yes.
people have. So are there any biggest misconceptions that you've also heard from clients about buying versus renting in Dubai?
See, I'll tell you, buying versus renting, when you talk about, right, it's also about more than a financial decision. Sometimes it's also emotional decision, and it's also a decision based on personal requirements. Eventually, if you're renting, yes, you are definitely paying someone else's mortgage. Okay. If you buy a property and you live in it yourself, yes, sometimes if you put it from a numbers perspective financially, it might not make the most sense, but that also depends on where you wish to live. Now, there's some people who stay on rent, but have a huge portfolio of properties which gives them rent. Okay. So for them, what they're doing is they're making sure that their money is working more harder, and where they are paying rent is actually better than buying that particular type of property. Now, in this scenario, you keep renting. If you are in a property where, if you were to purchase that and see what kind of rental return that gives, or the bank mortgage, versus if you put that same amount of money in some other property which gives you a higher rental return. So just to make it very simple, let's assume that you're staying in a property which costs, say, 5 million dirhams, and the rent on that property is, let's say, 300,000 dirhams. Okay. Uh, on the other hand, there could be an opportunity where you invest 5 million dirhams and you get 500,000 rent.
Right.
That way, it's a very sensible financial decision. But if you're paying 500,000 rent, right, then you might as well buy the property. Also, when it comes to buying a property, especially if it's for self-use, for a lot of people, it's also a lot of emotions and peace of mind. So you really can't put a value to that, you know. So it's also a personal decision. But having said that, end of the day, I tell people you need to start investing. Now, whether you invest and you use it yourself or you invest and rent it out, you need to build a portfolio, because on a long run, real estate is known to be one of the most safest and stable asset classes across the world.
I mean, emotions on one side,
Yeah.
but then I guess the magic word is again mortgage. So,
Yes.
what are the mortgage options for residents and non-residents, and how do you compare that? What impact would that have on the decision that you take, buying versus renting?
So, if you're a resident over here, for your first property purchase, you can get up to 80% mortgage. So you only need a 20% down payment and 80% the bank can fund. If you're a non-resident, you can still get up to 60% mortgage. You need 40% down payment. Now, obviously, what happens is, in a mortgage, you're making the payment over a period of 20 years. Now, if someone is buying this for an investment, in general, in Dubai, you would see that when you buy a property and mortgage and you let the rent pay off the mortgage, in about 10, 12 years, that property is kind of paid itself, because the amount of rent you receive can easily take care of the mortgages. So that's the thing. Yes, mortgages do make a lot of difference when it comes to buying properties, because if someone is a resident, obviously 20% down payment is a very manageable thing for a lot of people to do. And that's what we're seeing a lot of end users buying into the market today.
So, are there situations where you actually advise clients, you can keep renting, you can keep buying? What are the red flags that you see when you kind of end up advising them?
I mean, if there's some people who are, in certain properties where the rent is extremely low and they can continue on that rent. So if you're sitting on a rent which is extremely low as compared to the market, obviously it makes sense continuing to rent. But there are some places where people are paying obnoxious amount of rent, especially if they've rented recently. In that scenario, it's way better to buy the property, because if you're putting a 20% down payment and instead of paying that high rent, you need to, it's better you pay towards a mortgage. Because even a lot of people have this thing that, and a lot of people say that, oh, when you use your own house, it's not an investment. But look at it this way: you put a 20% down payment, you're using that house, you're not paying rent, you're paying the bank. Maybe 10 years down the line, you sell the house. You get a good amount of money along with the appreciation. So whatever installments you've paid towards the bank, it's actually gone towards your equity. So when you sell the property after 10 years, you've got that money back along with whatever it has appreciated to after 10 years. Whereas if you're just renting, obviously you're just throwing money away.
Well, also when it comes to some of the foreign investors in Dubai, you've spoken about the influx of foreign investors here. And how do you think that this is shaping the opportunities when it comes to Dubai's real estate market? And what are the challenges when it comes to first-time buyers?
See, yes, there's been a huge influx of, foreign buyers in the city. And especially post-COVID, we're seeing, this trend increasing day by day. Previously, it was COVID. And after COVID, it's a lot of other factors which are causing a lot of people to come in. Obviously, because of which the prices are going up, rents are going up, traffic is going up, across the city. But
as well as parking.
No, parking, of course, parking,
problems.
salary, everything, right? So we're seeing that. Now, coming to first-time buyers and the challenges, number one, what I see a lot of first-time buyers, they are struggling to decide where to stay. Right? Should I buy this? Should I buy that? Second thing, they need to work out their finances, because when you're buying for the first time, you need to understand all the costs which are associated, because it's not that you're just buying an apartment or a villa or townhouse, whatever, and say if the value is 2 million, that's the cost. No, there's a 4% DLD cost, there's agency fees, there are costs for title deed, etc. If you're taking a mortgage, there are mortgage costs. Then comes your monthly installments. Then comes your service charges. If you're in a building, the service charges are high. A villa, townhouse, service charge less. So you need to understand, on the whole, that what it's going to actually cost you before you take that decision to decide, okay, what you want to buy.
I will actually be talking about the second part of your answer later with respect to the additional fees and the other charges. But you were talking about the factors that actually affect a first-time buyer's decision. But on your show, you've also discussed global events like, say, the US elections or the economic shift impact that Dubai's real estate has witnessed. How should buyers and renters factor in all of these external influences that would impact their decision?
See, the one thing is external influences, first of all, are not in our control. Okay. But what we've seen is that anything which happens anywhere around the world, somewhere we see UAE benefit out of it. Any sort of issues happening somewhere else, we see, a lot of influx of people happening over here for various reasons. Now, one thing which people need to understand that Dubai is becoming more of a global city. Not becoming, but it is a global city. We have over 200 nationalities living over here. And, people from all around the world are, making this place their home. Along with a lot of external factors, I think internally also the government's doing an amazing job in terms of development of the entire city. And they need to factor in both the things, put together and take decisions. That, what a lot of factors, especially external factors such as exchange rates, for instance. So recently, with the whole tariff war going on, we saw the, currencies like the pound and euro becoming stronger. So now someone sitting in UK, all of a sudden, if you compare, if they were to buy the same property in December versus now, they're getting a 10% discount. So these are some external factors you should always keep an eye on. Now, of course, it might not affect to, say, a buyer in India, but someone sitting in Europe or UK right now, it's literally 10% off on the same property. Not that the market here has corrected, but the currency difference is making that difference. Same way it goes for even someone who's selling a property. So that's
that was the time I wish I hailed from Europe. Do you also anticipate any kind of major policy changes that could tip the scales, either towards the renter side or the buyer side?
I don't think any major policy changes we will see, because I think the government's doing a great job when it comes to protecting the interests of the tenants as well as the landlords. Yes, we did see, recently the RERA index got revised, which actually was a great thing for both the tenants and the landlords. Some people might complain on it, but eventually you need to be fair, and that's what the government's done. It's a very fair way to evaluate. So I think I don't see some major shifts happening as such.
No wonder they say buying a dream home isn't as easy as it seems. So, what are the biggest risks for buyers today, especially in Dubai's market, and how can they mitigate them?
Well, look, number one, if they're buying a ready property, the risks are often low. But what I would still say is, when you're buying a property, make sure you know how old the property is. If it requires maintenance, any maintenance, get a snagging done. It might cost you a few thousand before you take the property over, but at least whether is everything okay at the property or no. Having said that, something can go wrong even later on, but at least if if it's a newer property, issues are less. If it's an older property, you make sure you've done your checks properly, that it should not be that you end up in a house and then you realize you have to spend 100,000 on doing up something. So that is one when it comes to the ready properties. Then again, people think that, what if the market's correct and all, but I tell them that, look, it's not about if the market's correct, you're still using the house, or if you're renting it, you're still renting the property. It's, a loss. If you feel that markets have corrected and the value of my property has gone down, it's gone down if you sell it. If you don't sell it, it's still with you, right? And if you, hold on to it, eventually the price will cover. So on a ready property, usually the risks are really low. Yes, sometimes if you're buying a property which is tenanted, you need to make sure there is a proper vacating notice served through the court, and not just an email or just a letter, but properly through the official channel how it's supposed to go. Because unless it's there and you know that the tenant is vacating, it should not be that you buy a property and then you realize, oh, I need to wait 1 year before I can actually go into the property, because you'll have to give a new notice. So these are the things. But when they're buying an off-plan property, obviously there are some risks when it comes to delays in construction. So obviously you need to check developer's reputation, who the developer is, what have they delivered in the past, what's the reputation, what's the review like, and what their past buildings have been like. Of course, the government has done a great job in terms of, RERA is really protecting the investors with the escrow account. So the money is all in escrow that has that protection. But again, it would be, still, it's if something goes wrong, it's still an inconvenience and, some risk associated with that.
True. Also, when it comes to an environment that I've been brought up in, anything that I buy, people always look at what is going to be the ROI.
Yeah.
So the importance of ROI is something that I'm sure that your clients would be emphasizing on. So what's the process for helping a client calculate the return on investment, especially with fluctuating service charges as well as rents?
So see, number one, ROI could change on a year-on-year basis. Year one, you might have, probably a very good ROI. Year two, maybe slightly less. Depends. If, say, a tenant continues into a property for 4-5 years, great. You have a stable ROI. Number one, when you're calculating ROI, obviously you're receiving an X amount of rent. You need to remove your service charges from that, because that's one thing a lot of people don't consider. They think, okay, I bought an apartment for 1 million. If it gives me 80,000, I get 8% ROI. No, that's not the fact, right? You also have to pay service charges in the apartment. That could be maybe around 7,000, 8,000, 10,000. So if you remove that, then you realize, oh, the ROI is 7%. Second thing, what people don't realize is they calculate only 1 million, whereas their actual cost of buying is probably 1,070,000, and or maybe there's some other fees, etc. So you need to calculate your ROI on that full amount invested, not just the value of the apartment, because those fees are also a one-time investment into the apartment. So if you're buying a property and if it's costing you 1 million, and by the time you actually take the keys, if it's 1,070,000, so that is your cost. And if your rent is 80,000, you make sure you remove your service charges, if there are any other costs, and then take that, and that is your actual ROI.
Got it. It is an AI-driven world today.
Yes.
That we see, and especially Dubai as well as UAE putting in a lot of impetus to that. How are technology and innovations like AI-driven analytics or crypto transactions changing the buyer versus renter equation?
I mean, see, what is happening is with the AI, a lot of data information is now today in public domain. Okay, and Dubai is very pro, transparency and data. So we see, all the transactions, everything is there. When it comes to, buying versus renting, as I said, end of the day, it's also about the finances. Yes, with, AI in real estate coming in, we're seeing a lot more processes and things getting more smoother and faster. Crypto, of course, Dubai in general is, pro crypto, and we're seeing a lot of initiatives coming in on that front also. But I think it's still, early phases. And I would say we need to still wait and see how it actually pans out in the next couple of quarters, or by the end of the year, how it goes.
My final question to you. You did talk about transparency here, and I'm sure that honesty and transparency would play a key role in kind of building trust, especially in the real estate market. So can you share a moment when you were being very upfront with a client and that changed the outcome of a deal?
Oh, what happens is a lot of people don't know this, but you can actually see data on a daily basis. If today I want to go and check online how many properties were sold and which property was sold for how much, I can go and check. Now, what happens is a lot of times people come with the thing, and I told them, look, what you're buying is probably not right and not right price. It's overpriced. Oh, no, it's a great deal. The guy's giving you a discount. I said, okay, they might be telling you they're giving you a discount, but take a look what's happening in the market. And I showed them the data, and they were like, oh, you can see this. I said, yeah, you can very well see this. And when they see that, and they, sometimes it takes them a little time to digest that how can, this be? And then they come back, say, yes, you were right. This is what is, we've changed our minds. We made that, we don't want to go ahead with that decision. let's go ahead with something else. So that I think, the transparency and data putting out by the government has helped a lot. And I tell every investor that, look, it's a free tool which is available to everyone. So before you make a decision, all you have to go is go on the Dubai Land Department website, see the transactions for every building you come through. So even if you're buying in a particular building and you want to know what was the last apartment sold there, So you know whether you're paying a fair price or overpriced or underpriced, So that's the thing.
Right. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you
thanks
so
for those
much.
eye-opening statements indeed.
Thank you.
And please don't go away because we have more coming up on the show. Okay, it's time to analyze a real Dubai listing and tell you if it is a buy or a buy. This week, we've got a one-bedroom apartment in Business Bay listed for 1.1 million dirhams. It boasts downtown views, has service charges of 14 dirhams per square foot, and features promising compact floor plan. Downtown views? Yes, if you crane your neck and squint past that shiny giant building right in the middle there. Downtown views. Compact floor plan. You can probably touch both walls at the same time. ROI of around 5.5%? Well, that's average. It's not going to make you rich overnight, but you won't actively lose all your money. Fingers crossed. So, is it a buy or a buy? It depends on your priorities. If being close to the action is your jam, and you're okay contributing a not so insignificant amount to the building's upkeep, then maybe take a look. Otherwise, keep swiping. Your dream apartment might just be one more listing away. So, here's the bottom line in glorious unfiltered truth. Short-term Dubai fling? You might want to keep renting. It's easier to move around for a new job or a short-term relationship if you don't have a house loan tying you down. Your landlord will actually thank you for your continued contributions to their fifth property. But if Dubai is starting to feel like home, if you're tired of your rent going up and up faster than the July temperatures here, and you actually want to build some equity, that magical word that means you own a thing, then start planning to buy. That daunting 20% down payment? Well, think of it as your forced savings plan. And those monthly mortgage installments? Potentially less painful than writing that rent check every month. Let me drop a little insider knowledge. In Dubai Marina, the average price for a one-bedroom apartment for sale around 1.58 million dirhams. The average annual rent for a similar one-bedroom about 110,000 dirhams. Do the math. The total upfront cost of buying in Marina is roughly the same as renting there for about 5 years. Instead of rent, we have 5 years of payments done towards something you own. Food for thought, right? Play it smart, do your homework, don't fall for the luxury living Instagram ads without reading the fine print. And it's always best when you watch the show to make an informed decision. Next week, we are diving into the wild, ambitious world of off-plan properties. The promises, the pitfalls, and the potential for heartbreak. So subscribe, hit that like button, it validates my existence and ensure that you tell me in the comments, are you a renter for life? A budding homeowner? Or are you a property advisor looking to level up your advising game? See you next Sunday on The Real Deal Dubai. I'm Pratibha Raman and you stay real.